The sound of engines had always been more than just noise to Ethan Cole. Growing up in a small town outside of Dallas, Texas, he believed that the roar of a V8 was the sound of freedom. As a kid, while most of his friends dreamed of becoming football players or rock stars, Ethan only dreamed of speed. His father was a mechanic who spent long nights in a dimly lit garage, covered in grease, teaching Ethan how every gear, piston, and carburetor worked. For Ethan, racing wasn't just about cars. It was about heartbeats, about how life itself could accelerate when the tires hit the asphalt. But dreams don't survive without struggle. When Ethan was 17, tragedy struck. His father died suddenly in a car accident, not on the track, but on the highway. The family garage went bankrupt, and Ethan was forced to give up his dream of racing to support his mother and younger sister. For years, he worked odd jobs, delivery driver by day, diner waiter by night. Yet every time he passed by the old garage, he felt the ache of unfinished business. His life felt like an engine left idle, waiting to be ignited. By the time Ethan turned 24, he had convinced himself that racing belonged in his past. That was until one late evening when he stumbled across a street race on the outskirts of Dallas. The crowd was alive with adrenaline, cheering, whistling, shouting. The smell of burning rubber filled the night air. Ethan stood there in silence, feeling his chest tighten as two cars screamed down the deserted road. For the first time in years, he felt alive again. Watching them, he whispered to himself, "This is where I belong." The following week, he returned to the old family garage. Dust coated every tool, rust clung to the wrenches, and the silence felt heavier than ever. Yet in the corner sat a half-built car his father had been working on before his death, a 1969 Mustang Fastback. Ethan brushed the dust off the hood and ran his fingers across the cold metal. In that moment, he felt his father's presence, almost as if he were whispering, "Don't quit, son. Finish what we started." Ethan began to rebuild the Mustang with every free hour he had. He poured his sweat, his savings, and his soul into the machine. At night, when the world slept, he would drive out to empty highways, pushing the Mustang harder and harder, testing its limits as much as his own. Racing wasn't just about speed anymore. It was about healing, about reclaiming the life he had almost lost. One night, during a local underground race, Ethan entered with his father's rebuilt Mustang. The crowd mocked him at first. His car looked too old, too simple against the polished imports and roaring muscle cars. But the moment the race began, everything changed. Ethan's reflexes were sharp, his instincts almost natural, as if his father's spirit guided his every move. He didn't win that night, but he came close. Close enough that the crowd stopped laughing. Close enough that whispers began. "Who is this guy?" Among the spectators that night was a man named Jack Turner, a retired professional racer who had once competed in NASCAR. Jack had lived the highs and lows of racing, victories, defeats, crashes, and comebacks. Watching Ethan reminded him of his younger self, raw talent hidden beneath years of pain. After the race, Jack approached him and said, "Kid, you got fire in your veins, but fire without control just burns out. If you want to be more than just a street racer, you need discipline." Those words stayed with Ethan. Over the next few weeks, Jack became his mentor, teaching him not just how to drive, but how to think like a racer. "Anyone can press the gas," Jack told him, "but the real driver knows when to hold back, when to strike, and when to trust the machine. Racing isn't about beating others. It's about beating yourself." And so began Ethan's journey, not just back to the track, but back to himself. The road ahead would be brutal. He had no sponsors, no money, and no team. All he had was his Mustang, his determination, and the lessons of a mentor who believed in second chances. But for Ethan Cole, that was enough. Because deep down he knew some dreams never die. They just wait for the right moment to hit the gas again. Ethan's days quickly turned into a blur of grease, sweat, and late-night races. By day, he was still the guy hustling shifts at the diner, serving coffee to truckers and businessmen who had no idea that at night he was risking his life on empty stretches of asphalt. By night, he became something else, a racer who carried both his father's dream and his own. Every time he gripped the steering wheel of the Mustang, he felt as though he was holding destiny itself. But the street racing world was unforgiving. His first real underground race had been a rush, but what followed was far harder than he expected. Some nights he would win, feeling the glory of cheers and the intoxicating taste of adrenaline. Other nights, he would lose badly, outpaced by machines far more advanced than his. There were races where he barely scraped through, engine smoking, tires shredding, pride battered. Yet, with every loss, Ethan's determination grew sharper. You don't lose until you quit, Jack would remind him after every defeat. Sitting in the garage, Jack would lean against the wall, arms crossed, eyes steady. Every scratch on that car is a lesson. Every time you spin out, every time you choke under pressure, it's teaching you. The question is, are you listening? And Ethan was listening. More than that, he was evolving. He began studying his opponents, not just their cars, but their minds. He watched how they handled corners, how they anticipated moves, how they balanced caution with aggression. Slowly, he started adopting those tactics, turning his raw passion into something sharper, something tactical. But the deeper he got into the racing world, the more enemies he made. There were racers who didn't take kindly to a newcomer earning respect so quickly. One in particular, a ruthless driver named Marcus Kane, began to notice Ethan's rise. Marcus was infamous in the Dallas underground scene, a man with a reputation for not just winning, but crushing anyone who dared to stand in his way. One night, after Ethan pulled off a stunning victory against a seasoned racer, Marcus confronted him. He stepped out of his jet-black Camaro, his presence commanding silence in the crowd. "Nice run, rookie," Marcus sneered. "But don't forget whose streets these are. You might have talent, but talent doesn't mean a damn thing when you're up against me." It was a warning, and Ethan felt the weight of it. But instead of fear, he felt fire. He didn't come this far to bow down to anyone. That night, sitting with Jack in the garage, Ethan asked, "Do you think I can beat someone like him?" Jack chuckled, shaking his head. "Kid, beating him isn't about horsepower. It's about what you're willing to endure. Marcus plays dirty, always has. If you're going to stand against him, you need to be prepared for more than just a race. You need to be ready for war." The following weeks were brutal. Ethan pushed his Mustang harder than ever, tuning, testing, tweaking. He studied Marcus's racing videos, memorizing his patterns. He trained himself to anticipate every move. At the same time, he struggled with exhaustion, balancing 2 jobs, sleepless nights, and endless repairs on a car that was barely holding together. His hands were callous, his body aching, but his spirit burned brighter than ever.